There it is, Rosalina.
So it looks like someone finally got a piece of that cake, if you know what I'm saying. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow.
Oh, look what you did. Wow.
Oh my god,
Wow.
dude.
Hey guys, and welcome to GTLive, where today I am joined on the couch by none other than...
Lee, hi.
Hello.
It's me, Lee.
It is you, Lee. Hi, welcome to another installment of Matpat Sits on the Couch and does a life in review of an upcoming host of their channel.
Indeed. And we're only talking about stuff that I've done for this channel, which is my whole life now.
That is true.
Yeah.
You don't exist outside of this channel.
Indeed.
Or these channels, I guess.
Yeah, and I haven't for the past however long it's been.
No.
Very long.
It's
been very long.
It has been a long time.
It has.
I think, so what's been fun on these kind of like deep dives into the history of the different creative directors is that all of you approach it from a very different angle and got here in a very different way, right? So like, you know, Santi and Amy, very different from you for sure. And I think you're probably actually the most differentiated of everyone.
Probably. I mean, I've had a long and storied career with Theorist Inc. I was
long and storied, yes.
Like legitimately.
Yeah, no, totally.
I was editor number 3 you guys brought on after Ronnie and Ryder.
Yep.
It was in like 2014.
Yeah.
Which was
2014.
Like
I was but a wee lad back then.
Right? I was 20.
That's crazy.
I was a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And somehow still older than Ryder. Actually, here's a fun the story of this. It's
Please
really
go.
fun.
Yeah, go for it.
So at the time, I was doing these like Super Smash Brothers videos of like, hey, here's like all the Easter eggs and stuff I could find in this stage or whatever. And around that same time...
Missed that era of just Super Smash Brothers content. Everyone just milking Super Smash Brothers dry. Like, who's going to be the next character? What is my fantasy character going to be?
I'm going to make a roster and make up a moveset. And,
right. There was so much... Super Smash Brothers, as a standalone game, there was so much that you could do about it. Like, you had us, you know, where you're able to cover like lore and story and this and that. That's fine. But yeah, the number of Easter eggs and breakdowns of different characters, and let's design my ideal moveset, and then here's my different moveset based on these, and then here's the references that you can go. Like, it is such a deep well, and then that's the stages, it's the music, it's the items, what they do. It is such a deep well, because it really capitalized off of everyone's personal desire.
And it's such a celebration of like games and all that.
Yeah.
What a great franchise!
What
a great franchise!
Which is also, and sorry, I don't want to distract away from your. I don't want to distract away from your story here, but I'm curious to get everyone's take here, which is so all these rumors are circulating about Switch 2, right? And how like, oh, they're going to move on to what the next thing is after Switch, right? To me, though, one of the big questions I have is if you're a Nintendo, where do you go? Because Switch has really been designed. When you look at the like library of the Switch, right? It's really been designed to be like the peak,
the ultimate
of so many things. Yeah, it's like here's Super Smash Brothers, but like all of them, right?
Everyone is Mario Kart, but it's like the best version of the best game we did, and also here all the DLC with all the old stages.
It's literally the ultimate Mario Kart because it's all the games combined into one, basically, for lack of a better term. Like it's about as close as you get. Here's Mario Maker, and it's like all the it's basically every Mario game ever combined into one. You know, there's so much.
What do they do?
Right?
Yeah, what do they do?
Well, right, exactly. Like, if you're Nintendo, you have like your 6 main franchises. Say, I don't know exactly how many, but I'm, like roughly you got like what Zelda, Mario, Super Smash Brothers, Metro, but
ish,
right? But like, they roll it out and the fanboys get excited, like me.
Yeah, Mario Kart.
Yeah, but like Mario Kart's one. But like you have like those 6 tentpole, like these are the system sellers. But like, unless you're completely reinventing the wheel of like Smash Brothers, like where do you go? What do you do? Like it's a big question mark.
I can't imagine what the next Smash is going to be because it's like where do you go? Like you can't get the roster. Like you could get it bigger, but like
without fundamentally, you'd have to fundamentally change the formula, which then is opening up the door to like, oh, I have just created a whole new game. Like I've created a whole new series, right? Like Smash Brothers as you know it kind of has to end with Smash Brothers Ultimate if they want to carry that franchise forward into something else. Like it's one of those things that as I've seen more and more news stories popping up about like, what's the next system and Nintendo's on the verge of announcing whatever, and even the PlayStation stuff where they're like, well, it's at the end of the PlayStation 5 life cycle. Where are games going?
It's such a fascinating conversation because I think the Switch has had such a huge impact. On you see stuff like the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck coming up, and who knows? It's going to be crazy.
Anyway, sorry.
So I was making Smash Brothers Easter egg videos in like 2014, and around that same time, another one of our co-hosts, Drake, was doing a similar Smash history, going through like, hey, well, what's the like move sets of people? Where the moves from the like Mario? Where did he get the fireball? Obviously, the first, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously,
they're not all bangers. Okay, to be fair, sometimes you just gotta catch people up with the basics.
Yeah, where did Donkey Kong learn to punch?
So here you'll see this move where he extends his fist forward. And what is that? Well, since the dawn of man, humans have been able to extend their limbs forward.
Yeah. Monkey punch.
Monkey punch. Yeah. Let's look at the derivation of that.
And because we had those series kind of running at the same time, I had a friend who tweeted at you actually just out of the blue, and like. All of these stars aligned where you happened to be on Twitter at that time. You happened to see that reply. You happened to be like, I'll click on this. Yeah. You happened to sit through it.
Yeah.
And then you emailed me, and it was great.
No, it's so interesting how fortuitous everyone arriving here has been, right? Like, I think when you look at like traditional companies or traditional like working places, it's like, oh, you went through the HR manager and you filled out the job posting, and that person reached out and you had an interview and that was it, right?
Yeah, and you and I are like, we had a Twitter mutual.
Yeah, right.
And with Tom, it was like he cold called.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it, right? It was like a cold outreach here. It was like a random Twitter thread there. It's been such an interesting series of fortuitous events to wind up with the people that we have here in such a non-traditional way, because I mean, we've assembled, like, not to pat ourselves, but like we have like a dream team of people here. Like everyone cares. They're really good at what they do, and
very specific verticals.
And very specific things. Yeah. And it's one of those elements where I kind of wish it were easier and systematized in a way, because then all of a sudden you could do it, and because here at Theorists, hi, welcome behind the scenes. It's one of those things where like everything we do is always bespoke and custom. And what I mean by that is there are certain things that fit into a formula, but very rarely is that the case. Like every kitchen shoot that we do for Food Theory is very different from every other kitchen shoot. It's not like, oh, let me go over to my kitchen set and now, here's the top-down camera, here's the shots that we get. It's very systematized, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, do we need the top-down camera for this? Oh, we do. We have to figure that out.
Yeah. No, oh, we're doing an episode about cooking in a dryer. Like, all right, we're going out into the driveway and figuring out how to do that. Like every episode is so vastly different. Yeah? Is that one of yours?
Yeah, that was one of mine.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We're gonna have a bunch of those.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna visit some history of you editing stuff in the past, but like I think that's important for people to keep in mind. I think it's one of those things that you don't think about it unless you like work on it. Like to the outside viewer, like you wouldn't think about that sort of stuff. But even stuff like film theory, where every episode is forcing you to get familiar and comfortable talking about a completely new franchise, and in a similar but different way. It's the exact same thing as that Food Theory example, where it's like
it's we're not doing experiments every single episode and going to cook every single episode, but it's like the one that just came out this weekend. We have to figure out how are we going to talk about the carbon emissions from Fast and Furious.
Yeah, right.
How are we going to manage to get all of the points for Whose Line Is It Anyway counted in a way that is possible in the time frame we have.
Yeah, the way that you're doing a Whose Line Is It Anyway episode is vastly different from the way that you're doing a carbon emissions of Fast and Furious episode, which is completely different from
lore of FNAF.
The lore of FNAF, the lore of Gravity Falls, or hey, we're predicting something about the MCU. Yep. Right? Like it would be awesome if it was as easy as 25 Easter eggs, 25 Easter eggs, 25 Easter eggs, 25 Easter eggs.
But it's not.
No, but it's not.
But it's not.
And I think that's both the beauty and the challenge of these channels, right? Is that element of, I mean, you have creative free reign to do basically whatever, right? Yep. Like, as I've been approaching these final 10 episodes, I'm unrestricted, and so I'm like, Fast and Furious carbon footprint.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Why not?
Because it's a dumb thing that gets back to like those stupid ideas that I like to do sometimes.
I don't know if this will end up being what we choose for the branding of that, but Josiah and Sam and I were like, what if we just called this the dumbest theory we've ever done?
I just walked upstairs from a meeting with them about a lot of the like thumbnails for this week and stuff.
Excellent.
And I'm like, this is probably an accurate assessment.
All of us were like, let's do that. Yeah. I was like, it's up there with the Hemingway,
Deadpool and Hemingway. Yeah, that's my fave. So how's it been, like this evolution from editor to writer to now creative director and soon to be host?
Yeah, it's honestly been wild. I mean, like, when you actually sit down and look at it, it's been a third of my life, right?
That's nuts.
Which is crazy to think about. And like,
I mean, it's been a third of my life too, which is like I said, you and I have been on it for the longest time. And so you look back and it's like, 13 years. For you,
so part of it's like feels natural, and part of it's, terrifying because of the responsibility of it. And part of it's like, it's Tuesday.
Part of it's like, it's Tuesday and I got a script to do.
Yeah, like we got to do it. I've done one of these before. Yeah. Let's go and do it. Right. So it both feels very strange and very everyday. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. It absolutely does. And I think it is. It's all those things, because it really, the major change is just like there's one extra step in the process now, which is just you are now recording it instead of handing it off to me to record, right? And so that's a small but very substantial change, but we'll see how it goes.
I'm excited.
About you as a creator, though, before we hop into this too, because like you started with Breakdown, and you also, like you said, you were creating stuff long before you were with us.
Yeah, I think I was part of the first generation of like YouTube fans that was out there, and especially when like the YouTube gaming space really took off. Sure. Like I was there. When like
I witnessed it.
When Peanut Butter Gamer and the Game Grumps and all of these classic creators started, I was there. And was
you remember Aaron Hansen before he was
I remember when he was Ego Raptor.
Yeah, right.
He used to animate stuff.
when Sequelitis days.
Oh yeah, that was like, I remember when the Sequelitis for Ocarina of Time came out, and it was like
game-changing.
A huge deal.
Massive. It completely shifted everyone's perception of that game.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about.
Like, there's probably a direct line between Sequelitis of Ocarina of Time to Tears of the Kingdom, which is like funny to think about.
No, yeah, if you track the public response to Ocarina of Time, it shifted with that one video. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Aaron Hansen, aka the guy from Game Grumps, otherwise known as Ego Raptor back in the day, he was an animator, but he had this very, very short-lived, 3 episodes, right? It's 3 episodes.
Yeah, Castlevania, Mega Man, and Ocarina of Time.
And Ocarina of Time, I think it's 3, right? Very, very short-lived series called Sequelitis, which is an incredible breakdown of different games and different franchises.
Yeah, the whole pitch is like, hey, let's look at Mega Man versus Mega Man X, and like what changed, what improved, what didn't, and how did it influence the series moving forward? Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's very short-lived. It was probably very difficult to make, and there's only so much in-depth knowledge. Like it was again a tough show to make, but up until that point, everyone said like Ocarina of Time, like pinnacle of gaming, like one of the best games of all time, best Zelda game bar none, like untouched, pristine, perfect, right? Yep. And then he has this big video go out that's literally, hey, this game wasn't as good as y'all thought. Like
the description he used was like, hey, it's like it's taking you through a theme park, which is fun and great, but it doesn't give you the freedom to go and do what you want, like the older Zelda games at that point had done.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about the combat systems in it, about like how much waiting there's involved in the combat system, and it's how it's not fun, it's waiting. And so, to that point, right, that all of a sudden pivoted how people were like, oh yeah, was this good actually? People, that reassessment.
It came out around like just after Skyward Sword had come out, and Skyward Sword was like the example of the classic Zelda formula. Yeah. And it didn't sell that well.
Right, and people, it caused this like mass kind of reevaluation of Zelda as a franchise, which exactly what you said.
Led to Breath of the Wild, and then
led to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom now, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, that was one of those historic videos. I think that, I don't know if people will be able to remember or track back to that or whatever, but that was a pivotal moment in the history of kind of the Zelda franchise, and it's that one video.
But yeah, to answer your question, stuff like that really got me inspired to make stuff. So I was kind of like maybe second, third generation of these YouTube gaming creators. And like, I remember my first video was this documentary about a man named Gunpei Yokoi.
Yeah, of course.
Who was the guy who invented the Game Boy.
Yep, Game Boy. Yep.
Which you can directly track up to like the Switch.
Yeah.
And that very fortunately blew up with a couple of creators. I owe a lot to like Shane Gill from Did You Know Gaming. Yep. He saw that and introduced me to a lot of people. And I expanded out, made a couple more things like the Smash Brothers stuff.
Yeah.
And very, very quickly, like I was so lucky that that interaction on Twitter happened, which got me this editing job.
Yeah.
And I was like a year into making YouTube videos.
I mean, the thing was, your editing style was just really good. This is one of kind of the, would you say, early-ish things that you would edit? Like, how deep into your career with this?
So this was Breakdown.
Right.
This was an episode of Breakdown that I was making as a partner on the Game Theorists.
Yeah.
So this was 2015. Yeah. So I was 3 years. I was going to say,
stuff. I guess it was deeper.
Yeah, and I just think this is one of the better episodes that we got to make.
At some point in your life, you've come across some form of trading card game.
The story about this video is, this is an episode we didn't get to release.
Yeah.
We can cut some stuff if we need to.
We could, but we probably won't. Yeah. We'll see. We'll find out after
we got approached by...
If there's a lot of jump cuts, you'll know
that I did an oopsie and broke NDA.
Or if there's a lot of punch-ins and punch-outs. But I think we should be good.
Yeah, we got approached by...
You're Lee, the professional. You understand what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say.
We got approached by Blizzard in like 2015, 2016, and they wanted to do a video about Hearthstone.
Yep.
So we pitched them a couple ideas, and the one that they went with was, hey, let's talk about the history of Hearthstone and like World of Warcraft in a trading card game, which for me, by the way, is a dream come true.
I was going to say,
I grew up with this.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is fantastic. Like, you have ascended to the summit.
Yeah, I'm getting paid to talk about this thing I love.
Yeah, so here, real quick, I'm going to play it for a second.
These are games comprised of specifically designed playing cards, not dissimilar to the collectible sports-themed cards from the early 20th century.
Mellow, low-energy
decks that have existed since as early as the 9th century in Imperial China. Yeah. Trading card games infuse...
I mean, that's you. Yeah. That's you, man. That nice, relaxing, smooth podcasty voice.
Podcast man.
Between titles have varied from
so how much of this is stock versus how much of this is captured by you?
This is custom. I had a friend who had a friend who owned a bunch of the classic World of Warcraft trading cards. So this was a custom. That part was custom that he captured. This is stock from Magic the Gathering tournaments and stuff like advertisements.
These ideas.
This was obviously a trailer, probably.
Yep.
Like.
Is this your title card?
Yes.
Evolve into ever-changing metas.
The very well-edited title card, I have to say. It's very smooth. I'm very proud of the motion graphic stuff I did.
Successful trading card games can have
just like your voice.
Card variations in their vast
see you passing.
I ruined it.
Upwards of 15,000 card variations printed during their runs. Today,
surprisingly easy. Yeah, like you would think. Like the illusion of these videos is making things that are very easy not. The story of this video.
Yes, please.
So Blizzard's creative team, I have to say, they were fantastic to work with. They loved it. They were like, not only could you do Hearthstone, but like, we'd love if you just did like the whole history of trading card game.
Yep.
Like going back to like Magic the Gathering and like talk about the big ones up until the World of Warcraft trading card game, and then how Hearthstone changed the game. Because Hearthstone was like the first digital trading card game that really took off. I was like, this is great. This is awesome. I'm really proud of this script. Yeah. This is fantastic. We sent it in. Their creative team loved it. But the law team, the lawyer team, the legal department was like, do you have rights to show this stuff?
Right? Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, first of all, it's fair use. So yes, I understand your concern. What I ended up actually doing, this is the original version of this, but there was a version of this that exists somewhere in a hard drive. Yeah. Where I went to a local Magic the Gathering tournament where I was living at this time. And I framed it perfectly so you could tell that they were playing cards, but you couldn't see any logos or any art.
I remember this,
And the final version of this was like very boringly edited. Like, here's this person flipping this card you can't see, and we cut to a different angle of a person flipping a card you can't see. And then they were like, well, could you give us a spreadsheet of all of the assets you used in this to prove that you have the rights to all of it? Which I thought was ridiculous. So I made it. I made the spreadsheet, and then they were like, we're just going to cancel the deal. I was like, great.
That was one.
Awesome. Love it.
That was great. Yeah. And thus you had your first brand deal trauma. It was great. And that's and that's why in contracts now we write in things like, hey, there's cancellation fees and stuff like that. Because
it was me. I did.
You spent how long on that
This
video?
was weeks.
Yeah, I know. It was. I remember this.
Probably over like 2 months in between.
Yep.
Like actually editing for Theory.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not a great time.
Brand deals.
So thanks Blizzard Creative. Darn you, Blizzard Legal.
I mean, but and again, it's one of those things that you don't know until you peek behind the curtain of stuff where so often you have these situations where the creative teams have one vision and they're like, well, let's do this and this
is
amazing.
Awesome. This is going to be great.
And it's like, yeah, that sounds great. But they don't. But one hand doesn't talk to the other hand, and all of a sudden, this hand is the hand that actually holds the keys to the kingdom. Yeah. It's like, okay, hold on there. But because already like you're off on your way, and they've got like marketing deadlines to hit and this and that. It's like, by the way, and so it was that experience. Ryder went through a similar experience, and it was
I remember that.
Yeah, with a different gaming company, and so it was one of those things where. That's why, from our end, we now have
to be very careful with the contract wording. And
like at this point with contracts and stuff, we have like stuff worked in. It's like cancellation fees. We have stuff that like once you've approved a concept, it is locked in, and we're assuming that you have done all your due diligence on your end to make sure of X, Y, and Z. And if you try to pivot it after X period of time, like you can't.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, the too bad clause. But it's one of those things that you go in and you expect a lot of larger companies and things to have things all buttoned up and together because like, oh my gosh, look at how big and successful and this and that and and all the hierarchies and this and that. But they're not.
Yeah,
they're hot messes held together by glue and tape.
Bubble gum and duct tape.
Yeah, bubble gum and duct tape, right? And so it's one of those that over the years, because you've been a part of that journey, right? It's like over the years you learn how important it is to protect yourself.
Yep.
And to protect your work, because at the end of the day, no one else is looking out for you.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily respect you. Like, I remember when we did our version, like even something as simple as, hey, do you watch the show that we produce? That's honestly a question that we have legitimately asked people multiple times in the past. We're like, you do realize the style of show of the style of visuals?
Yeah, a lot of the I know deals that have fallen through for us.
Yeah.
No names will be named, but
maybe I don't know. I might name a name. Whatever.
Fair.
Yeah.
A lot of them that have fallen through have been like, "Hey, we're questioning your IP."
Yeah.
Because that's the shtick.
Point. That's the shtick.
That's the show.
Yeah.
And you don't want us to question your IP. It's like, thank you for thinking of us, but
right. Or like one of the notes that a lot of people have recently been getting from us is like, or that we get and that we respond with is they're like, hey. Can you add in a couple sentences in there saying like, oh, these are your views and this, and it's like, no, that's implied. Like they get it. Like they're not dumb. Like that is the whole format of the show where if we're pontificating about how this show will end or how season 4
Scott
will
Cawthon doesn't actually believe this.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I don't need to caveat the fact that like this is me speculating. That is implied. No, I didn't get feedback from the show. But anyway, there's been a lot of that. Or even stuff, again, we had this one deal that we've since mended our relationship with Nintendo. So look at me, I'm saying it. But it hurt for a while because like I was so excited because we got the chance to work with Nintendo on Smash. And it was one of those things where...
Circled back around. We knew what we were doing.
Right? But it was one of those where I'm like, yes, finally I get to do stuff with Nintendo. And we had a good relationship with them and this and that. Like attending events, but never like them paying us to do something. I was like, whoa. But all of a sudden we deliver this video and everyone had worked super hard on it because Nintendo and Smash Brothers was like one of those things that was so important to all of us. And we're like, yes, we get to work on this.
I think it was a head editor Dan video. And I remember he was so excited about it.
It was a Dan video. Yeah. And we were so stoked and we were like so proud of it. And we're like, this is amazing. And then we send it into Nintendo and literally I give a lot of notes. Like, and you can talk about
hundreds.
Yeah, I give hundreds of notes back when I was giving notes on all the videos, and especially in the email days where we didn't have Framio and things like that. And I would just list off.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, here's my email. Let's all right.
Hundreds of notes, right? Of like, here it is. And usually a brand, when you send in something, a brand will give you like 5 notes.
Yeah, like, it's general stuff like, hey, generally, could we avoid doing this?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's understandable.
Yeah, but all of a sudden, Nintendo came back with an email that looked like the emails that I would send with hundreds of notes. And it was stuff like, you have flipped the character. You horizontally flipped the character. You have given the character
Ridley does not have googly eyes.
Yeah, Ridley does not have googly eyes. Yeah,
please remove the googly eyes.
Yeah. Or like, you have photoshopped him holding something that he would not hold. And it's like, and that was one of those times where I'm like, you partnered with us. You've seen the shit. Like, that is our visual stuff. This is what we do. And Nintendo of America was okay.
Yeah.
Nintendo of Japan was not. And at the end of the day, Nintendo of Japan's like, no, all of this has to be changed. And we actually did our best. I remember this one because we did our best to like try to find a middle ground and be like, hey, this is us trying to do as best we can with this. And they're like, they came back with another round of like giant notes. Like that was apparently their first round. And we're like, hey, we just can't do this. And that was one of the few times in my history of doing this where I literally wrote a letter back to the brand. And I'm like, I don't do this sort of thing. But so you know, this has been personally hurtful to all of us on the team. I'm so sad that we have to cancel this, and I just can't work with you guys anymore because of the disrespect that's been shown to us, our format, our show. Like it was big, and I've maybe written maybe like 2 or 3 of those sorts of notes in the history. Otherwise, it's like, oh, okay, well, we just won't work with them again or whatever. But this was one where it hit deep, and
it hurt because like we had done stuff with Nintendo at that point. There's another video we might talk about if we have time.
Oh, I mean, we can
sure. If you want,
that's a good one.
It's that last one. Yeah. So this is from an old show called Deadlock, which
an old show,
was your baby.
Yeah, that was another interesting brand deal.
And I specifically wanted to talk about this one because this was after I had transitioned into I was writing and editing at the same time, and I wanted to talk about this because I felt this was the first time where I was like, this is weird to me to see someone who I have grown up watching, and this has basically been like obviously Reggie is a human being with thoughts and feelings and all that stuff, but like to me as a younger person, he's like a character, right? Yeah. It's E3 man.
Yeah,
who comes on and talks about Donkey Kong and whatever.
Yeah, so Deadlock was the debate show that we did for a while. So.
Yeah, which sorry I got you canceled for Overwatch.
No,
that was my bad, but that's a story for a different day.
That was my first one.
Was it the first one?
I think that was my first time kind of getting canceled. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Story for a different day. The reason I this blew my mind so much was because it was seeing.
Second time. Sorry, I'm just reflecting on my various cancellations. I think you were technically second. Yeah.
My bad.
No, you're fine.
The reason this was mind blowing was hearing Reggie say the words I had written.
Yeah.
And like how odd that was.
I think so the audio for this one was terrible because we had to film it in like a random conference room in like 15-30 minutes during E3.
Is that as a player you shouldn't be.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, no, it was because again, this was we weren't used to filming on the road at this point. And so all of a sudden they're like, hey, we want you to do something with Reggie. Like you have Reggie available to you, and we're like, hey, would he debate me about motion controls? And they're like, yes. And we're like, awesome, great, let's do that.
You gotta write something now.
Yeah, and it was one of those there, it's like, okay, let's push this along and make sure that this happens. But the filming location that they had was so bad. It was in like a back room at E3, literally like a warehouse, completely open. We did our best to like protect the sound as much as we could, but we weren't sound engineers at that point. Yeah. We weren't good.
We didn't have experts like Ash.
But no, we didn't, right? Like it was one of those where we were just kind of cobbling this together and being like, how do we make this sound somewhat passable or whatever? And so we did the best that we could. And this next time we got Reggie on, it sounds a lot better.
I wrote that one too.
Yeah.
So like
about the consoles.
Yeah, so you could actually hear headset there at the top. So you can actually hear this one. But
there's a pretty big.
I also did that Did You Know Gaming Reggie video.
Glad to be back here again, Matt. I'm surprised you wanted me back considering
audio
much better.
Better that time.
Trounced you in the last debate.
Again, but it was still phrased in a very difficult way. Like it was still filmed in a very tough location where his audio was still obviously different. But again, we did the best that we could given like the time that we had.
Which, by the way, when I start taking over and voicing stuff, if you recognize my voice, it's probably from shows like Did You Know Gaming, where I did that Reggie Fils-Aimé video.
Yeah?
Yeah. I narrated it too, I think. Yeah, that was me. I've had a weird career.
Playing both varsity soccer and basketball.
That's the guy. I know that guy.
It's me.
It's amazing. It's me.
University in New York.
Yeah,
between 1979.
Fantastic
and
stuff.
1983.
This really
He was
fit in
the
with the
president of
documentary
school's
style stuff that I
chapter
was
of the
doing.
Phi
So,
Sigma
Oh, yeah, no, totally.
Fantastic. Anyway, yeah, like that's why I bring up the Reggie stuff, because it was like,
There's a pretty
man,
big
that
chance
that
when
is so
someone mentions
wild
the
to
phrase
see
video game.
this person who I grew up,
Yeah.
like not idolizing, but like
No, totally. I mean, yeah.
saying words I wrote. It's so strange and
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, but Deadlock, for those of you who don't know, was the debate show, and it originally started because YouTube was doing like small funding for channels to do like dream projects or extra projects, right? It
Like
was
pre-YouTube Red stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of their small scale testing into YouTube Red. Because in the early days, for those of you who don't know, like this is like the deep lore of YouTube, where in the early days, like they paid millions of dollars to channels just to create channels on YouTube, right? Like,
Interesting.
Yeah,
I do remember that.
yeah, there was an arrow, and it was a mix of celebrity channels, and it was a mix of like creator endemic channels. We were not one of them, but like you had like the Fine Brothers and stuff back in the day. Like they were one that were like, hey, you're starting to do stuff here. Here's a cash infusion to continue making content, right? Or I forget, there was like some basketball player and some like comedian got one. I forget the exact list, but it was this early days where to kind of like get people to like want to make content on YouTube and make it on a regular basis and make it look good and on and a lot of it. They're like, hey, let's do cash infusions into a couple of these channels. And so that was like their initial round. But obviously they were placing like really big bets on just a very small handful of channels.
Yeah.
And so over the years, they're like, hey, it makes sense for us to kind of like encourage and promote content on the platform, but, maybe not to that level. And so over the years, you saw them kind of adjusting dials, I'd say, and like, engaging with different dollar amounts to feel like what is the appropriate amount to like give to people to like incentivize content. And so Deadlock was one where they approached us and they're like, hey, did you ever have another show that you want to do? And I pitched them on like, I've always wanted to make my version of Mythbusters. And they're like, that would be too expensive. That's kind of outside the realm of this.
Come back to us in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, right? And it was one of those where instead it was like, hey, we have a much smaller budget here with significantly lower dollar amounts. Is there anything that fits in there? I'm like, well, I've always wanted to do like a cool debate show, which is how Deadlock came to be.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that got us the funding to do like the first 3 episodes of it or whatever. Just like, hey, we can spend a little bit more on hiring professional people to design the assets and do some of the motion graphics and this and that. And then from there, once it had been set up, then it became like our job to kind of like take over and run with. And so that's where Deadlock came from. And the only reason it stopped, like I love Deadlock as a format. I thought it was really fun. I like doing debates. I think debates are fun. Was twofold. One, it was tough to get guests and just like work with people's schedules. And it was hard to get guests who are comfortable reading off of like teleprompters or...
Yeah, and like, especially for a show like this, it's them putting like, this is what I think, even if it's something we wrote.
Well, yeah, and that was the other half of it was most people, but there was a subset of people who struggled with the concept of like, no, this is just a general debate. Like this isn't meant to be like I'm right, you're wrong. It's a like, hey, we're collecting all of the internet's like beef about X, Y, and Z. We're putting into one, and then you as the audience get to decide. You are the final decision maker in this, but we've collected all the arguments on one side or another. But people, it ended up being a show that instead of being like, hey, let's settle these debates and come to a conclusion about this and have an open-minded conversation about it.
It started some vitriol.
Yeah, it fueled the fire a lot.
We were innocent. Back in the day.
Right. And I'm like, maybe we can help heal people online with hate, with a like bridge the communities and this and that. And it didn't happen. And it just ended up being like, it just made people angrier. And I'm like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want people to be mad about it. So that's the history of Deadlock, which I think is really fun. I did want to pull up your first ever episode.
Yeah, this is the very first episode I had edited. I remember you came in the email and you were like, hey, we have a part 2 that I want you to edit. And I was like, Watch Dogs? Watch_Dogs part 2?
Yeah.
Because that was one that had been
teased
going for a while.
time.
And you're like, actually, no.
Yeah.
It's part 2 of an episode that hasn't been released yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There it is, Rosalina.
So it looks like someone finally got a piece of that cake, if you know what I'm saying. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh, look where you see Eddie. Wow.
Oh my god, dude.
But how can Peach be
Man.
here and here? All shall be revealed.
Oh man,
Game Theory used to be great.
it used to be good. Yeah,
I miss those days. Ash is dumbfounded. Ash is well, that in and of itself is kind of the. I gave 100 notes on that.
Yeah, no, like actually, I was gonna bring up, like, I remember the first notes you gave me on this, because the first version of this was very text-based with it. You can kind of see it with the
the
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink,
a lot of it was like just this.
Yep.
And I remember the note you gave, which was like, hey, this is good and the timing's good, but we can be even better by adding like imagery and stuff to it. Pull memes and pull like at the time pulling fan art was kosher.
Yeah, that was
pull fan art and clips and this Marvin Gaye song that we'd get copyright struck for now.
Right.
But
it's under 6 seconds. I think we're clear.
Yeah.
This one still has a big claim, which is great.
Yes.
Amazing.
You can even see
you can see the watermark.
Yeah.
Shout out to Yakko.
Oh man,
I'm surprised I didn't give you a note on this. Actually, now that I go back, I'm like, ooh, that's
gross.
Yeah, that's not okay. Excuse me. Can't believe.
Where's his hand?
I know. I was sorry. I was too distracted by his pimp fedora.
Yeah.
Clearly.
The
slow slide whistle. Absolutely.
Yeah, this was so fun because
erect Luigi. Yep.
Great.
It's brilliant.
It's great.
But how can Peach be here?
I remember this was so. I got lucky because I feel like freelancing for you guys was very positive and collaborative. Because I remember another point in this episode where you left a note about it was the telescope.
Mm-hmm.
In Luigi's Mansion. It's near the end of the video.
Yeah. And
you were like, Lee, should we include this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not quite sure about it.
Yeah.
It's like way at the end.
Yeah.
The Amazing IndyCar tournament.
Amazing IndyCar tournaments, yeah.
You were asking for my input on that.
Yeah.
And whether or not we should cut it, and I got to make the final call of whether to keep it or not, which we did.
Yeah.
And that is not something you typically see with freelance work, and like it made me feel empowered and cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, again, that goes back to my like theater days where I don't know, like yes, I have a creative vision and I have like an idea of like how I want things to go, but I think it's so incredibly valuable to be open to having those conversations and like, hey, us working creatively together is so much better and yields such a better product than if I was just like dictating literally every element of this, right? And so you coming in and being a collaborative partner and a creative partner in that, I think just makes the end product that much better, right?
Yeah, and like while we're actually on that, could we go to the film theory that I had?
Oh, sure.
The Neo one.
Yeah, totally.
So like the reason I pulled this one up and wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, here, let me just play it.
Wake up, Theorist. I don't know if you're ready to see what I have to show you, but unfortunately the two of us have very little time.
That was fun.
They're coming for you.
This is coming
I
for you.
don't know what they're going to do if they find you. I can help you,
I
but
was gonna say it looks
exactly
like a
as I
Thomas.
say. Watch this video and perhaps you will.
But the reason I bring this one up, this wasn't the first theory I wrote for you. I think the first one I had written was one of the Game of Thrones theories.
I was going to say, I think it's Game of Thrones, wasn't it?
Probably Jon Snow, which was like a very popular fan theory in our version of that, basically.
Yep.
But this one was a theory that I had just personally held with. I guess it was Ronnie, actually. This was a theory that I had personally held that like Neo was not the one.
Yeah.
And my pitch of this was like the concept of the one in the Matrix is just a lie.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. It is a thing the machines use to kind of keep the cycle going so they can keep humanity oppressed.
Yeah.
And that was the script I turned in. And I remember when this final video came out and I saw what you did with it, which was like taking Agent Smith and you made this connection of like, hey, when Agent Smith absorbs Neo, that's when the machines break.
Yeah.
So the conclusion there being, no, actually he's the one.
Yeah.
So the one is a lie.
Yeah.
But here's the extra twist.
Yeah, the layer on it. Yeah.
Like that was where I was like, it clicked for me.
Yeah.
We're like, I get it. I get how to write these. I hope I get how to write these.
You saw the light. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like it expanded my brain.
Yeah. No, and I think like that's the really cool part about all of this. Again, it's that creative collaboration. It's that idea of like, I have this set of knowledge and I have this set of knowledge. And so when our knowledge is combined, it's that much better. Or I did this research, oh yeah, well, have you considered going in this direction, this direction, this direction? Now let's use those together.
Or like I was so into this theory as it was that like, yes, I had noticed that, when he absorbs Agent Smith, everything breaks. Yeah, of course, obviously. Yeah. But like just the fresh set of eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, right,
like,
exactly.
But why? Mm-hmm. And having the natural conclusion of that was just so cool.
Yeah, it's, I mean, even the episode that I started recording this morning, and I'll finish recording after this, Gravity Falls, right? Where like, oh, Alex Hirsch is Bill Cipher. Well, this
spoiler alert.
This one will have gone up.
It's going up before.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Alex Hirsch is Bill Cipher. Hey.
Spoiler.
That's coming up this weekend. It's exciting. But it's that idea of like, hey, the research that you've done was really good. And then it's like, hey, did you also consider X, Y, and Z from, this last episode or whatever? And you're like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. And again, it's one of those where those fusing of elements yields a strong script.
And even stronger.
Yes,
script.
exactly. So it's cool. I like that. Well, I'm glad that you feel creatively
invigorized. Yeah.
Invigorized.
No, put aside
and just one last thing I wanted to talk about.
Go for it. Morbius. Wait, why'd you pick Morbius? I'm curious.
So this was the first episode I worked on as creative director.
Are you kidding me? Wait, really? I don't remember. That's so funny.
We did the whole audition process, and I was very thankful for getting this job and working full time and joining the team in that expanded capacity.
Yeah.
And the very first thing, Monday morning, we were like, you guys had already had like a programming schedule set up what you wanted to do before I jumped in.
Yeah.
So you were like, first episode we're doing, Morbius. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I did, paid full time for this job, was watch Morbius.
Yes. Oh man.
It was something.
Should we, here's a question for you, Lee. I think this is a very important and relevant question.
Yes.
If this was your first episode as creative director, should your first episode as host be Madam Web?
Don't do this to me.
Just like,
keep the tradition up.
It's a tradition at this point, right?
I can't believe I was the only person in the theater. Sony heard us. We wanted more, and they gave us more. Or should I say morb? You, sir, are you going to hashtag sweep into the next showing? They released Morbius.
I forgot about all these memes.
And will always be morbin.
Dude, please stop saying morbin time. Memes.
That's Bob. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's dead.
Like, that wasn't even...
So wait, is the canonical voice of Ed Krause?
It's Bob Chipman now. Movie Bob. That's canon now.
Oh no!
It's pretty bad.
Want to get bagels?
Okay.
Want to get bagels? Oh
man,
wow.
that was a reference to something, I'm sure.
Oh, that's so funny. Or not. Maybe it's just random. I love that.
Loves to sink its teeth into some juicy lore.
Oh man, this is
Morbin time.
This is Cohen. I can recognize this editing.
It's almost
right.
Like there was a
well, and that's the other thing too, because at this point, like I look back at the history of the channel. It's so cool to see the different eras of everyone's editing, and now that we saw that the Neo one was Ronnie's edit, I should have known because he did it in his Flash animated style with the sound cues, which look weird, and there's a reason for it. It's because of the way that he does it. But what about you? Like, coming from editor to where we are today.
So there's actually there's lore here. I was the only editor, even at the time, to use. I did all of my edits for Theory in Adobe Premiere instead of Adobe After Effects.
Yeah.
So everything you saw of mine. So for example, like here, actually, this is a good example. I edited half of this. Cohen was the other half.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I edited the front half here, and like all of this. Like,
you submit,
is
when
like
they result in episodes
2D.
like the one today.
It's all flat assets, and like right here, like that is faked 3D
perspective shift and then rotate. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Specific inventory.
Trust me, I understand the 2D stuff. Once Sedge and everyone opened it up to After Effects and 3D, I'm like, I can't, man.
Yep. I mean, pretty much, and it's like
that's right.
I have no idea how I kept up with them for so long in Premiere.
I was going to say, did you ever learn After Effects then?
If there was a specific thing I wanted to do, I would learn how to do it in After Effects with the eventual idea being, eventually, it will all be After Effects.
But finding the time to actually, like, that was, and honestly, that was where I got to with my editing journey too, where it was like, I was editing to a certain degree, and I'm like, oh, I understand keyframing, I understand how to get effects like this, and how to get some of these animations and this and that. But to elevate to the next level, I had to learn After Effects, and it's just like,
there's no time. I have to like actually do my job. Right.
Like I'd love to, and honestly, I would love to. Like, it was one of those things where I'm like, I can see everything that you can do through this tool, and it's so powerful and it's so cool.
So like stuff like this, where it's like, this is a fake 3D scene, right? And the idea here is like, I have the image in the foreground that I'm just making bigger, and I have this nested image in the background that I am making smaller.
Yeah, exactly. It's playing with scale and perspective, so it's like, oh, I'm fading off into the distance.
Yep,
100%.
Yeah, and you can add like a blur. There are blur options you can do. So if you really want to like get super fancy,
get into it,
you can fake depth of field.
Yes, absolutely. But well, right, and that's great. And then there's that certain point where it's like you have to make the jump to that next program.
So like I think with Backrooms stuff, I edited some of the Backrooms videos, the really early ones. And I remember Sedge and Thomas were doing such cool stuff, like making hallways and stuff. And I was like, I got to keep up.
Yep.
So I learned how to do a like rudimentary 3D hallway in After Effects.
Yeah.
And it didn't look as cool as theirs, but I did it, and it was awesome.
I think the only thing I ever did in After Effects was exotic butters. I think that was the one time that I'm like, I'm gonna dip into After Effects because this thing needs some visual element to
razzle
it.
dazzle.
Whatever I could pump out in whatever time I had. There's a reason why exotic butters is just like one rotating image the entire time. But I think that was like the only time I actually dipped into After Effects and like did a tutorial very quickly. And it's the Exotic Butters remix. It's the third. Yep. And
I know this effect.
Yeah,
I've done this a few times.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, I can play around with this. I can play with some color mapping. I can do some stuff like that. You know, playing with growing and shrinking the butters and stuff. Yeah, no,
it's
totally.
Like
this is very much like Baby's first After Effects project that I just threw up on the channel.
I don't know if this is probably too obscure, but it's like when you start making Blender. Yeah, we're making the donut.
Right, yeah.
We're making the donut.
So true. Oh man, but yeah, no, I totally understand. I'm right there with you. And Ash is signaling that it's time for us to move on. Don't worry, I've seen your hand raised the whole time. I tried to do a small gesture down here where I was like pointing at you. I hope you would notice, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm like, I registered.
It's time to wrap up, guys.
I know. Yeah, I know. We have to go to see the other creative directors and talk about scripts and stuff.
And make fun of Santi for having less HP than me.
Yeah, right? How'd that happen?
He's weak.
Shots fired. But anyway, Lee, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks for all of this. Thank you for spending a third of your life with me.
Right? It's been great. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, oh my gosh, of course. Yeah. And now I'm excited to spend my time with you on the flip side. So so supporting you instead of you supporting me, that'll be good. And you having to listen to my hundreds of notes. So anyway, that's Lee, ladies and gentlemen, rising up to take over film theory.
How dare you?
I don't know. I heard the click. Did you hear the click-through rate of Santi?
Everyone forgets about film theory.
That's the meme. I love it. No, you will never be the forgotten middle child. So anyway, that's all we got in time for today. I already see my phone blowing up with angry messages from everyone being like, "Where are you guys? You're 4 minutes late." So thank you as always for watching, and I'm so excited to this next generation with you, Lee, and to see what you have in store for us. And I'm so excited to just continue hanging out with you guys over here on the couch, GTLive. And now, if you'll excuse me, we both have a meeting that we have to go to.
We gotta go.
Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, remember, it wasn't a live stream, but it was a video for you. See ya!